In cinema, truth is rarely absolute. It shifts, refracts, and sometimes hides in plain sight. If you've seen Weapons, you already know what that feels like. A story that begins one way and ends somewhere completely different. The same event, seen through different eyes. Each one convincing, each one incomplete. But Weapons isn't alone. Some of the greatest films ever made have played this same game, showing us that the way a story is told can be more unsettling, more revealing than the story itself. Directed by Zach Cregger, Weapons became one of the year's most surprising critical hits, praised not only for its unnerving tension, but for the way it fractures its narrative. What begins as a familiar horror setup, strangers haunted by unseen terrors, slowly unfolds into something larger, a puzzle of perception, where each chapter reframes what we thought we understood. Cregger isn't just building scares, he's dissecting how we interpret them. Each perspective reveals a fragment of truth, but when assembled, they expose something deeper, the limits of empathy, and the blind spots that shape our sense of reality. It's an idea that has haunted cinema since its earliest masterpieces. So today, let's revisit some of the greatest films that dared to tell one story through many eyes. Everything begins, or perhaps crystallizes, with Rashomon. Akira Kurosawa's 1950 masterpiece didn't invent multiple perspectives, but it defined how cinema could use them. One violent act, four conflicting testimonies. What Rashomon reveals isn't the truth of the event, but the impossibility of ever reaching it. Each account reflects not what happened, but what each witness wants to believe. Half a century later, Basic took that same structure into the world of military thrillers, John McTiernan transforming a whodunit into a maze of contradictions. Every interview becomes a duel between narrative and authority, until the act of storytelling itself becomes suspicious. Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs is often remembered for its dialogue and violence, but beneath its surface lies a fractured storytelling rhythm worthy of Kurosawa. We never see the heist itself. Instead, Tarantino gives us its aftermath through fragmented recollections, versions told in confidence, deception, and bravado. Each character inhabits his own moral movie. This fascination with fractured time would evolve even further in Pulp Fiction, where entire timelines orbit around coincidence, fate, and irony, as if Tarantino were rearranging cinema itself like a deck of cards. And in Jackie Brown, he takes this structural obsession to its most elegant extreme. A single money exchange scene replayed from multiple angles, each retelling peeling away illusion until all that's left is pure cinematic choreography. Across these three films, Tarantino transforms fractured perspective into a signature language, a way of revealing character through the stories they choose to tell and the ones they choose to hide. Gus Van Sant's Elephant pushes the idea of multiple perspectives into the realm of poetry. Set during a school shooting, it repeats the same day through the eyes of different students, each passing moment accumulating dread and inevitability. There are no revelations, no clear answers, just the haunting realization that perspective doesn't necessarily bring understanding. Gus Van Sant's Pyrrha glides through corridors like a ghost, not judging, not explaining, simply observing. It's Rashomon without testimony. Tragedy seen from every side, yet truly understood by none. John Sayles' Lone Star takes the Rashomon principle and expands it to an entire community. Through an investigation into a decades-old murder in a Texas border town, Sayles weaves together past and present, myth and memory, Anglo and Mexican heritage, all coexisting, all conflicting. Each character's version of history is both true and incomplete. By the film's end, Sayles suggests that identity itself is a collective act of storytelling, and that the border between truth and legend is as porous as the Rio Grande. But not every storyteller seeks to find the truth. Some are born to twist it.
Bryan Singer's The Usual Suspects took the Rashomon formula and weaponized it. Told through the confession of a seemingly unreliable narrator, the film constructs and then demolishes its own story. Here, perspective isn't merely subjective, it's manipulative. The narrative becomes a con, a cinematic sleight of hand where the storyteller himself is the villain. When the truth is finally revealed, we realize the film has been lying to us from the start, and we loved every second of it.
Brian De Palma's Snake Eyes opens with an 11-minute unbroken shot, a bravura performance in point of view. A political assassination unfolds in real time, and as the perspectives multiply through cameras, monitors, and surveillance feeds, De Palma transforms the Rashomon idea into a meditation on media itself. In Snake Eyes, every truth is recorded, yet none are believed. It's the perfect paradox of cinema, what Jean-Luc Godard once called truth at 24 frames per second, turned inside out by Rainer Werner Fassbender's bitter correction. Film is a lie at 24 frames per second. De Palma's film lives precisely in that tension, between revelation and deception, between what the camera shows and what the audience chooses to see. It's cinema as paranoia, the lens as both revealer and deceiver. But what happens when the lens itself becomes human, when the truth isn't captured by a camera, but by conscience? Doug Liman's Go translates multiple perspective storytelling into the kinetic language of the 1990s pop culture. 3 interlocking stories, all happening over one wild night, collide and overlap, like Pulp Fiction filtered through MTV. Each retelling reshapes the same chaos, and in doing so, captures the fragmented energy of youth itself, impulsive, self-centered, and alive in the moment. But long before Rashomon, Orson Welles had already experimented with perspective in Citizen Kane. Through a series of interviews and recollections, we see the rise and fall of Charles Foster Kane, never through his own eyes, only through those who knew him. Each witness projects their own truth, and by the end, Kane remains unknowable, a myth constructed from fragments. Welles turned biography into mosaic, using structure as psychology. Stanley Kubrick's The Killing tells a simple story, a racetrack robbery, but fractures it across time and point of view. By repeating events from different angles, Kubrick reveals not just the heist, but the fatal flaw in human precision, the illusion of control. Where Kurosawa explored moral ambiguity, Kubrick explored mechanical failure, fate as the ultimate editor. Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line dissolves perspective into something transcendent. Every soldier, every blade of grass, every memory has a voice. The narrative splinters into dozens of inner monologues, suggesting that war, and by extension existence, cannot be captured from a single human vantage point. Malick's cinema becomes a chorus, where subjectivity is both beautiful and unbearable. Alejandro González Iñárritu's Amores Perros closes the circle, returning to Rashomon's emotional truth but expanding it to a city-wide scale. 3 lives intersect through a violent car crash, each story reframing the others, each revealing new wounds. It's a portrait of connection and consequence, where one event radiates meaning across multiple destinies. Iñárritu's fragmented structure became the blueprint for an entire generation of hyperlink cinema. If you've made it this far, you already know, cinema isn't just what happens on screen, it's what happens between the versions we're shown. And if films with bold, unconventional storytelling speak to you, if Rashomon, Elephant, The Thin Red Line, or Weapons stirred something, you might also enjoy another journey we've taken on this channel. The only video you need about the films that truly blow your mind. A deep dive into cinema that bends perception, fractures reality, and invites you to see the medium itself differently. From Weapons to Rashomon, from Citizen Kane to Amores Perros, these films remind us that cinema is not a mirror, but a prism. Each story refracts through the minds of those who tell it and those who watch it. Perspective isn't a flaw in storytelling, it is storytelling.
And maybe that's why we keep coming back, not to find the truth, but to experience how fragile, how beautiful, how human every version of it can be.